like chosen, but I never thought y'all would notice. Touchdown, I was open around when I found I was golden. And it's alright, alright, alright. And it's alright, alright, alright. I felt like chosen, but I never thought y'all would notice. Touchdown, I was open around when I found I was golden. And it's alright, alright, alright. And it's alright, alright, alright. I felt like chosen, but I never thought y'all would notice. Touchdown, I was open around when I found I was golden. And it's alright, alright, alright.
Hey everyone, it's Max. Welcome back to Art Gym Interviews. This week, I'm sitting here with the Blind Artisan, also known as
Sydney.
Sydney, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So, Sydney, what kind of art do you make?
I primarily make digital art.
Amazing. And why do you like to make art?
I like to make art because I think that creating is my voice, and it is just a way of getting my message out to the world.
Amazing. And so, how did this come to be?
Well, it all started when I was in middle school, really. My dad gave up custody over my sister and I, and art sort of became that coping mechanism for me. And from there, it was history, really. I've been drawing ever since.
Incredible. So would you say that art has an effect on the way you live your life?
Of course, art. My life basically revolves around art.
And do you feel like art kind of helped you through COVID-19?
Most definitely. I know that a lot of people can relate to this, but for me, I was not in the best relationship, and I just got a second-degree burn on my foot, which made it hard for me to walk and be mobile. So all I could do was draw and create and enhance my art skills pretty much. So I feel like art really, well, not just art, but just the act of creating really helped me get through the pandemic and everything, for sure.
Definitely. I mean, not only were you confined to the house, but maybe you were confined to a seat for a while.
Yeah. I mean, even, this is a little off topic, but even just like sitting in this position that we're sitting now without having my legs up, like, was, I had to really have my legs up because, like, the blood would flow to my foot and it would be really painful. So really, I was confined to a bed for, a couple months. So it was very difficult, but I got through it.
And do you feel like your work has a genre that it fits into, or a work that you can relate to, or do you feel like there's no genre?
I think that it's hard to put my work into a specific genre, but I'm definitely inspired by certain art movements, and I feel like my work is basically a compilation of, of that. Definitely a little bit of Art Nouveau in there. I'm very interested in Southeast Asian artwork. That influence is kind of in there. A lot of Mayan and Aztec influence in my work too. So yeah, I think, and also a little inspiration from anime too, I can't lie. So yeah.
Wonderful. And I guess that kind of ties into what's with your name.
So I go by the Blind Artisan, and it's mostly because when I was born with a condition called albinism, which affects the pigment in someone's eyes, skin, and hair. And because of the effect that it had on my eyes, this doesn't happen with everyone that has albinism, but it just happened with me. My eyes were not able to fully develop, and so I was basically told by a doctor that I am legally blind, and I sort of reclaimed that name because it's something that I was in the special education for. I had accommodations for in college. Like, it was something that was sort of like made out to be like, oh wow, like this is holding you back. This is something that's holding me back. And I wanted to reclaim that and kind of use that as something that's pushing me forward, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. I mean, looking at your work, you couldn't tell that you were blind.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's amazing. It's really impressive, very highly detailed. I mean, it's so interesting that people would tell you your whole life, like, oh, sorry, you're blind. Like, I mean, looking at your work, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, and I think that something that I like to think about is maybe I just am blind some way, but can see the world from a different lens in another way, and that's kind of what pushes me to create the interesting, colorful, extra detailed artwork that I create, you know?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, what are some names of people whose work you really admire? Where do you look for inspiration?
So I look at inspiration literally everywhere, but if we're going by artists, I really love Alphonse Mucha. He's really great. He was one of the pioneers of the Art Nouveau movement. William Morris, who is a old textile designer. Obviously, he passed away, but he was a very famous textile designer, and his work was amazing. And then I'm also just inspired by any artist on like Instagram that has work that's highly detailed or has a beautiful, captivating color palette. I just find inspiration in the natural world. You know, sometimes going on walks through or traveling, but going on walks through nature, traveling like to different places and seeing the architecture there, that all sort of inspires certain things in my work.
Definitely. You do have a very kind of like almost international kind of collection. Like I see the Asian art, but then I also see like natural elements from like things that we see here in Atlanta, I guess. And so how many days a week do you practice?
As many days as I can, really. I honestly, art for me or creating for me is a lifestyle. And so I really try to incorporate that into my life as much as possible. It might not be the best idea because sometimes I do get burnt out. But I really love creating, so as much as I can.
That's fantastic. And so when you're practicing, do you feel like there's a difference for you between what you see when you're practicing and your end results?
Honestly, some of my end results have come from just something that I was creating based on practice.
Yeah.
So I feel like practice can lead to that end result. Because with art, creating is so weird because you could start something and not expect it to come out as good as it did. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so passionate. Now I want to put this into a finished piece.
Yes.
Because everything starts off as a sketch. So I hope that answered the question.
I think so, yeah. So, how do you know when you're in the flow of things?
Short answer is when I lose track of time, that's when I know I'm in the flow. When I look up and 2 hours have gone by and I'm like, 2 hours have gone by? Like, that's how I know I am in the flow. And also, another way I know is just like when it doesn't feel like work anymore. I pretty much do art full time. So when it doesn't feel like work, that's just when I know, like, wow, I really hit a point where I have my runner's high of drawing.
Oh, yeah. And so what steps do you take when making art? Do you always have some steps? And if you don't, that's okay.
I don't always have some steps, but in an ideal world, this is what it would be for me.
Okay.
Researching and using a mood board. I really love using Pinterest.
Oh,
yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, it's just the arsenal for anything, any creator. Just everyone should use Pinterest. Not sponsored, but
Not sponsored.
but I love to research. Then I'll go into doing a tight sketch based on my researches and my brief thumbnail sketches. And then for my tight sketch, I'll go into doing color comps, and normally I use Adobe Color, also not sponsored, to basically find a limited color palette that I really like and that I feel like would suit the piece really well. And then from then, I go into just doing flat color onto my tight sketch, an even tighter sketch on top of the line that I've already done, rendering, shading, and final details. And that's the final piece.
Oh, very cool. So you have sort of a layering technique.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. And so are there any projects you're currently working on, and are there places where people can see art that you're showcasing?
So right now I don't have any, well, nothing that is like, I'm like, wow, this is a huge thing that I'm working on. Mostly because I just got out of school, and so I'm just doing whatever I want, because most of my projects have been like, oh, do something based on this criteria. So now I just finally get to just explore my creativity and stuff, which is really cool. But something that I really want to have coming out soon are just some custom skateboard decks, because I think that would be pretty cool to have as like wall art, or if people want to ride them, that'll be pretty cool. So that's something that I'm really working on. And I'm also working on getting into some local Atlanta markets and shows and all that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sydney, for sitting down with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you on the show. And stay tuned next time for another episode of Archim Interviews.